Only when we're ill or going through real struggle do we become so aware of the time that's passed. Recently, I got diagnosed with sleep apnea. And to get diagnosed, I had to do a sleep study. And I went into the hospital for 2 days and they did a sleep study there. And when I was in that hospital, you can't really do too much in the hospital. Sure, I was working a lot from my phone, but I was sort of in a bed, able to walk up and down the corridor, but I couldn't really go much further than that. That's where I was for when I was having this sleep apnea diagnosis. Now, the time moved very quickly, and I just noticed, like, because you're in a regimented regime, the hospital says, here's your breakfast, your lunch, dinner, bed, right? Now, that reminds me very much of when I was stuck with OCD. Life when I could remember exactly where I was at points in time, looking back now based on how I felt. So in the past, I can remember, I had harm OCD here, HOCD here, ROCD, not ROCD, I didn't really have ROCD, but all existential OCD, somatic OCD. I could remember exactly where I had those. And it was a sort of comparison against those sort of pillars of suffering through time that I was able to measure that against. And that's key because when I was recently in the hospital, I realized first I wanted to not be in the hospital. I wanted to get back out. So gratitude of not wanting to be in the hospital. I was only there for a sleep study. So thinking of people who are in there for months and months and months with different illnesses, that's really, really frustrating. First, you're not exercising much. Your body's getting tired. You're in a bed all the time. It doesn't feel great at all. So with OCD, when I was suffering so much, like I was just making it through the day. There was that sort of survival and just getting things done. Today I've had a reasonably busy day. Mom dragged me to a cat cafe to go and see some cats. We went for some lunch to have a meeting, and we were traveling to and from those places and doing different things, and we're working a lot on my phone. And you notice that those things, they go along sort of fluidly, and we're just flowing along with those experiences, but there's no rigid suffering that's sort of boxing in my mind that day, how that goes. And it's very different. It's like when I used to suffer from bad insomnia, the nights felt so laborious and like a battle, like a war. My bed felt like a war zone. I started to reject and not want to be in my bedroom, wanted to sleep on the couch because I set it up as a battleground in my mind that I needed to sleep, or I would die. So that wasn't great at all. And that's obviously the worst approach when coming to dealing with insomnia. You want to allow insomnia to happen as a sort of insomnia to happen and allow sleep to happen as just a bodily response out of your control and not fight, resist, and be scared of that process. And when you are, and when that's all happening, you get the insomnia cycle. That was very much when I used to think of those nights. I used to stare, looking up at the ceiling and think, oh my God, this is so terrible. Feeling isolated, feeling on my own, especially when you're looking at a partner next to you asleep, and then the nights feel longer and everything is in comparison against the sleep process. The wall, the ceiling, my partner, going back and forth to the toilet. All these things now become a sort of very tiresome process. And so you're now comparing to the old days of blissful sleep where you used to sleep. And then I'd envy a cat like I just saw in the cat cafe. Oh, he's asleep, no care in the world. If only I could have been born him instead of with this treacherous OCD gene, which is how I used to view that. And that's key to remember, because when you're going through any suffering, of course it feels longer. If someone said to you right now, would you like to feel an incredible amount of pain for 2 seconds, the most pain ever? You're going to think, really don't, even for 1 second. I really don't want that. And when we're in pain, obviously things, our measure of that moment, it becomes very vivid. And with OCD, you're in a combination of struggles for a long period. Now I don't care if there's struggles in relation to, because there's not a chronic anxiety, chronic guilt of despair from my own perception, where I think this is the worst thing ever and I'm completely sort of entombed in that panic. Now, if like, for example, I'm flying or I have to fly often quite a bit, if I'm flying and and I a bit jet lag, so what, there's some insomnia, I don't care. Last night I slept good. I slept like 7.5 hours, but what happened in the night, I had the sleep apnea machine, the CPAP machine I'm using, and I was just getting used to, I've been on it for a few weeks now, getting used to how that mask fits, and I noticed that it just sort of kept letting in air, so I was just to adapt it a bit, and then it was fine. So it woke me up a few times, but I've woken up a few times regardless, even when I didn't have insomnia in the past. Like when I think of what the past was like, even before anxiety, I used to wake up, go to the toilet a few times, maybe at night I was more concerned about something, I would get up. So it just goes like that. And I remember I was so focused in on, obviously not surprised that I was so focused in on, that was the nature of the disorder. I was so focused in on these aspects of everything. So if I was suffering with insomnia, I'd be constantly measuring, how do you feel? Do you feel fatigued? Do you feel sweaty? Do you feel hot? Do you feel tired? Do you feel frantic? Do you feel everything as a thermometer for the quality of sleep, as people now today are obsessed with their watches for how did I sleep, how did I feel, and they're doing that over and over and over again, which then becomes compulsive. And why I see many people come in with insomnia who started wearing watches to measure sleep, and it's not good enough quality sleep, I'm not going to live to 120 hours, and then you get that cycle. Of course, I want to live a long life. I try and eat healthy, I work out a lot, but I don't need to work out a lot and be healthy all the time, because maybe I don't live so long and I'm not panicked about trying to sustain in a compulsive, controlled manner living forever, which is an easy cycle to get into and people find themselves in, especially in this day and age of AI and longevity. And I'm for one who believe that we are going to be living hundreds and hundreds of years in the not so distant future with the changes in AI to our health and being able to make us live longer and longer. And I think that will be great. As long as AI doesn't kill us, which could also happen. And I accept that too. So I think what you've got to really think about is when you're suffering and you feel so encased in your mind, you feel so trapped behind the eyes right there, you feel locked out from the world, finding it hard to connect with others, like you're looking through misted glass and you feel like you can't connect in how you feel. And even in trying to explain your problem, people come into sessions with me all the time and they say, like, I just can't explain it right. Do you understand it right? With the chase for just right, the illusionary just right state. And you know, I've seen thousands and thousands of people with all different variation of OCD, and probably the most severe cases, definitely the most severe cases of OCD on the planet. And that trying to explain it, that because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get a feeling just right to get it in your mind so that the other person can understand it just right, and then you'll probably get a release, and then and that's happening, and that's actually the dead end, because how you come about it is not chasing a just right. Yes, I need to know what you're thinking to some degree. It's like if you went to a doctor and you said, they're like, hey, what are you here for? And you're like, I don't know. Well, they can't do much. They can't go through a million symptoms to work that out. So I need to have an idea of what the person is scared of, catastrophizing, thinking. And then I can deconstruct that, like the surgeon, with the beliefs, look at those beliefs, stop that catastrophizing cycle and bring that down. It's often very subtle and very nuanced, and people have often come in, they've been to countless therapists and specialists all over the world for years. And then they're like, I don't think this is going to help me, and this, that, and that. I can usually pinpoint straight away what's going on in that cycle, but then it's going to take practice, practice and persistence to bring back that baseline state of peace that you existed in prior to this chronic cycle. And some people will say, but I've been anxious my whole life. Yes, even in that circumstance, doesn't matter. It's still, you can see what's happening with those beliefs where you're jumping through the gears in that 0 to 100 cycle. And that's my job. And that's what I do with the team here, helping everyone to recover from OCD, no matter how long you've been stuck, no matter how severely, it doesn't matter. It's pinpointing why you are stuck and then putting in practice and persistence to get you unstuck. If you want to book in for a one-to-one session with me or any of the team, just click the WhatsApp link below and we will get you in. And hopefully next week and start you on the journey to OCD recovery.